Is it worth it in 2023 to stay on site at Walt Disney World? Let's talk about it. Before I get into the details of this video, I can just hear the negative Nancy's out there saying, no, there's so many things that you used to be able to do that you can't anymore. And I get it. Things have changed. But that doesn't mean that for a lot of us, it's still not worth it to stay on site. So I want to go through it, and then you can decide for your trip if it's worth it for you, because the answer is going to vary depending on your budget and your needs, your party size, etc. So in the before times, it was much easier to justify staying on site at Walt Disney World because there were a lot of perks associated with it, which did include Magical Express and Resort Airline check-in, extra magic hours, etc. So that was kind of a no-brainer. Like, yes, of course, it's easy to recommend staying on site. And then things changed during the shutdowns and the reopening and the period 1 or 2 years after that, where there really were no on-site perks. And so we told people, this is a great time to stay off site. Like, if you want to, this is a great time to do it because on site doesn't offer you anything different. And so you might want to just stay off site and save a few dollars. Now things are somewhere in the middle of those two, where there are still some on-site perks, but not as many as there used to be. So you'll just have to decide if these perks are worth it to you. Let's go through what is available so that you can decide. The first one is that you can book individual Lightning Lane selections at 7 a.m. Now, the individual Lightning Lane selections are what some people call the fancy rides or the a la carte rides, and those include the big headliners like Rise the Resistance, Flight of Passage, Cosmic Rewind, those attractions. And on-site guests can book those at 7 a.m. Now, regular Genie Plus, everybody, whether they're on-site or off-site, can book those at 7. But these particular ones, these fancy rides, on-site guests can book them at 7 a.m. Now, sometimes they will fill up immediately. And so by the time the parks open and off-site guests can book these individual Lightning Lane selections, they won't be available. Sometimes they still are available when the parks open, just kind of depends on the time of year and how in demand they are. But this is a huge perk for people staying on site for the ones that do sell out before the parks open, because you can buy them and guarantee your spot that day. Whereas off-site guests, I have to wait until the parks open and cross their fingers and hope that it's available. Another perk that existed in the before times and still does is the ability to book dining reservations before your trip all at once. So if you're an off-site guest, you have to book all of your dining 60 days before the day that you are going to dine there. So if you have 5 days worth of dining reservations, that means for 5 days in a row, you have to get online or call and make your dining reservations. If you're an on-site guest, you can do it once for up to 10 days of a trip. 60 days before your trip begins, you can make it for your whole trip all at once. This is a huge convenience. It also gives you better access to the hard to get dining reservations. So things like Topolino's and really all the character meals are much easier to get if you're an on-site guest who is booking them all at once, because you have a little bit earlier access than the off-site guests do. Number 3 is that you get free parking at the theme parks. If you have a car and you're an on-site guest, you don't have to pay for parking once you get to the theme parks, and you have access to all the complimentary transportation at Disney World. Now, if you're an off-site guest and you want to drive to Disney World and use the transportation, you can. But if you're an on-site guest, you can exclusively use the complimentary transportation if you would like. And so that can be hugely convenient, especially for those of us who prefer not to have a car. Number 4 on-site perk is early theme park entry. So this is what used to be called the extra magic hours. This is the morning version of it, early theme park entry. And when it was extra magic hours, it would be offered a couple days a week, but now it is early theme park entry every single day at every single park, usually 30 minutes before the park opens, and this is available to on-site guests. If you're an off-site guest, you're going to have to wait until the official park opening, and by that time, a lot of the on-site guests will already be in the park. So this is a perk. It just works a little bit different than extra magic hours used to. Number 5 is the evening version of this. It used to be extra magic hours at night, and now it is extended evening theme park hours. And this is only available for deluxe guests. So not all on-site guests get this, but the deluxe guests do. And this is usually available at Magic Kingdom at Epcot, just a couple of days a week. So you have to see if it works within your schedule, but it is available to deluxe on-site guests. Number 6 is resort room charging privileges, an on-site perk that existed in the before times and still does. And this is really just a convenience thing. So if you're wearing your Magic Band, you want to go shopping, it is very easy just to scan your Magic Band at the register, type in your PIN, and charge it to your room, as opposed to having to get out out like a credit card or cash or something. Number 7 is being inside the Disney bubble. I mean, this is why Disney World was created in the first place, because Walt saw that at Disneyland, people couldn't have that sort of immersive experience, but at Disney World, because of the size of it, you could really get people there and keep them inside the bubble. And for a lot of us, this is a huge deal. Like, we don't necessarily want to deal with the outside world. We kind of want to stay in our little bubble, and obviously staying on site makes it easier to do that. And lastly is just the location, because if you're staying on site, you are obviously closer to the parks than most people that are staying off site. And that's a huge deal given the size of Walt Disney World. So location, location, location. A conversation about staying on site and the benefits of it would be remiss not to at least briefly list out the things that used to be available that aren't anymore, because that is what a lot of people are thinking of when they are thinking maybe staying on site isn't as worth it as it used to be. That does include Magical Express, which no longer exists. You have to figure out your own transportation between the airport and Walt Disney World resorts. It also includes, in the past, you could make FastPass reservations 60 days before your trip begins, and now we have a Genie Plus system, which has its own quirky rules, with the biggest on-site benefit of that being those individual lightning lane selections at 7 a.m. that I already mentioned. Another one, which was probably our favorite, was resort airline check-in, where you could check your bags at your resort and then you never have to deal with getting them to the airport. We used to check our bags and then head to Disney Springs and then go to the airport, but now we have to carry our bags ourselves. You also used to be able to get free magic bands if you were an on-site guest. Now you can get a discount on buying them, but they are no longer available for free. And lastly was extra magic hours, which were available in the mornings and the evening several days per week, and they still exist in a different form, which we already talked about, but some people don't necessarily like the way that it works now and they prefer the extra magic hours. But anyway, that did used to be available and now has changed forms over the years. So having said all that, we still choose to stay on site almost always. Sometimes we stay off site, especially for longer trips where we want a little bit more space and a little bit less expense, but we still stay on site for the on-site perks and the location and all that kind of stuff, all the benefits that I already mentioned. One thing that's sort of in between the on-site, off-site options are some off-site resorts that have on-site benefits. So that can kind of be the best of both worlds if you're interested. This especially is handy because the Disney World resorts are often fully booked and they are also not cheap. So if you want something that's a little bit less expensive but still has on-site benefits, you might want to look at some of those off-site resorts. The best way to do that is to look at some of the benefits online on the Disney World website, such as early theme park entry. When you go to the early theme park entry at the Disney World site, it will say all the resorts that qualify, and they will of course list all the Disney World resorts, but below that, they will also list some off-site ones. So the Swan and Dolphin, for instance, are great examples of that. They are physically located on site, but not owned by Disney, but they still get a lot of on-site benefits. So you might be able to pay a little bit less or use your points and stay there and still get some of those on-site benefits. So if you want something that's in between, you might be able to reduce your costs and still get some of those on-site perks. All right, so I know this is a really loaded question. I'm really curious about your thoughts. Are you staying on site? If so, what is the perk that makes you want to do that? Or are you an off-site person? Feel free to let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.